So we've argued that in principle, markets provide a good way of allocating resources and it's efficient and so on. So what we need to understand is why, in reality, governments tend to intervene. Yeah, so we know from ages ago that most economies tend to be mixed ones, where there's an element of market forces and an element of government control. And we can say really there are kind of two main, very broad reasons that governments might want to intervene. One is sometimes markets can be quite unstable, and the other is what's called market failure. And market failure we'll come on to in a bit. But for the moment, what we're going to have a look at is instabilities. There are certain markets where prices tend to be very, very unstable. And these tend to be markets for primary products. And primary products are those taken direct from nature. So secondaries are manufactured goods, and tertiaries are services. Yeah, but primary products are taken direct from nature. So this tends to be things like agriculture, forestry, fishing, that type of stuff. Yeah, or mining and extraction. Those are your two. Those are your two kind of big ones. Yeah, so oil, gold, that type of stuff. Yeah, they would fall into the second category. Groundnuts, wheat, that type of stuff would fall into the first category. And what you'll find is that the prices of these things tend to be pretty unstable. Yeah, so they can vary by 2-3 times in the space of a few years. And what we need to understand is, well, why is that? And really, there are a combination of reasons. Yeah, and it's linked to, on the one hand, volatility, and on the other hand, elasticity. And what you'll find is that these two things work together to explain why the prices of primary products are volatile. So if we look, so volatile, volatile meaning unstable. So what we're going to explain now is volatile or unstable prices in primary products. Now, the first thing that you'll find is that supply itself tends to be volatile. So supply is prone to change. Now, that doesn't make it elastic. Yeah, elastic is determining whether you can control supply or not. Yeah, whether in response to price you can supply more or not. Here we're just saying that supply can suddenly change. Yeah, outside of your control. So in the case of agriculture, we're thinking about things like weather. Yeah, we're looking at things like diseases. That type of stuff will affect agricultural products. In the case of mined products, obviously, sudden new discoveries, or exhaustion of a resource could suddenly either increase or decrease supply. So looking at that diagrammatically, what we'll see, is that there is the possibility, that supply could suddenly rise in agricultural products, or it could suddenly fall as a result of volatility. Now, whether that will make price go up or down a lot, a lot's going to depend on what's going on with demand. So in particular, it depends on price elasticity demand. I mean, if demand essentially looks like that, in other words, consumers are very price sensitive and we have an elastic demand line, well then actually price isn't going to change by very much. However, we know that for primary products, for things like rice and wheat and that type of stuff, these are essentials either for consumers or they're essentials for the big businesses that need them. If you look at things like coffee beans or cocoa, the big multinationals, they have to get these things and they'll pay, because otherwise they can't make coffee, they can't make chocolate. So therefore, they're prepared to pay within reason, quite a high price. So what we find is you've got a combination of volatile supply and inelastic demand, which means that a sudden increase in supply can cause price to fall quite a lot, or a sudden decrease in supply can cause price to rise a lot. So what we're saying here is we have a combination of volatile supply. That doesn't make supply elastic, it's just changeable, as a result of natural forces, and inelastic, price inelastic demand. And that's half of what explains the volatility of primary products. The other half is that actually demand itself can also be volatile. Yes, if we look at the demand side, a lot of these commodities, they're subject to speculation. That's most obviously the case with things like gold and silver, where people will buy now hoping to sell for a profit later, or they'll sell hoping to buy back later. But it's true of any commodity, to be honest. Yeah, so there's a famous story from back in 2010 about a guy called Chalkfinger who tried to corner the market in cocoa, by buying it all up, hoping to sell it for a higher price later. So people will buy and sell these things not because they want them, but because they're hoping to make a profit. So as a result of which, demand itself can also be quite volatile. In other words, it can suddenly rise or fall. And if that's quantity, that's price. So what we're saying is that 1 year demand could suddenly rise to D2, another year demand could fall to D3. And again, whether this causes price to go up or down, it depends on elasticity of supply. I mean, if this is the market for music downloads, then it doesn't matter what demand is. We know that supply is horizontal. You can have as much Spotify as you want each month. You've paid your subscription. So whether demand increases or decreases, it makes no difference because there are no restrictions on supply. But for primary products, it's not that easy to supply more. We know that So if price starts to rise for say wheat or olives or something. Well, look, I mean, there's not much you can do. I mean, as a grower, you've planted your seeds already. If people want more of it, well, that's just tough this year. The same, with the case of things like gold. We can't suddenly find more, not in the short run anyway. So as a result, supply itself tends to be quite inelastic. So therefore, a sudden change, a sudden increase in demand would cause price to rise by a lot. A sudden fall in demand would cause price to fall by a lot. So what you've got is a combination, of both. You've got both volatile supply and demand, and also inelastic supply and demand. They're volatile because they can change outside of your control because of changes in things like the weather and that type of stuff. They're inelastic, because they don't tend to respond to price, especially, both of them. But, so as a producer, you can't suddenly produce more wheat. That makes it inelastic. But, of course, if the weather is nice, you get more wheat whether you wanted it or not. That makes it volatile. So what you've got is a combination of inelastic supply and demand, but also the possibility that demand could suddenly rise or supply could suddenly fall, which leads to big changes in price.